Welcome to TBI Analytics Podcast, where we interview people in this TBI space of doing great things in this world. And today we have the amazing John Choi from Honolulu or just Hawaii?
Yes, Honolulu.
Honolulu.
Aloha.
And aloha. I love it. And we just met. We're here at TLU Live in Las Vegas, and the amazing Dan Ambrose put this amazing conference on, and it is bringing people from all over this country and just to learn on how to be a better lawyer, how to be better with their clients, how to, understand what's the best way to navigate that courtroom. So many things to be learned at this conference. I've been attending since he started it a few years ago. And I was able to meet John last night, and he ended up coming up to me. We were in an 80s party, and you looked awesome. And he came up and took a picture with me. And then next thing you know, I'm getting introduced to him later to do this podcast today because we're looking for some, people to interview. And here you are. I
Thank
just
you.
love how the world works. So
Yes,
thank you for being here.
it's meant to be.
It is. It is. And we talked a little more. We're very spiritually aligned. I love it. And let's get into it. I know you are doing some great things in this world as a lawyer. And you mentioned that you have had TBI cases in the past.
Right?
I'd like to know a little bit more about it. How did you come about it? And then what were the circumstances to getting you that verdict or a settlement?
We got a settlement from that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
And
yes.
first you got to start out with a good client.
Yes.
And I would say he's a golden client. School teacher on his way back home from work. And this was on the island of Kauai. And unbeknownst to him, coming in the opposite direction was a person in his Toyota pickup truck.
Mm-hmm.
And he crashed head on into the school teacher, and the driver of the truck suffered 14 broken bones. And they were both going 50 miles an hour. And the school teacher, who we'll call Eric, that's not his real name, but
Mm-hmm.
he opened his door and literally just stumbled out and laid down on the
On the ground.
on the grass. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things he reported was that he was visited by an angel.
Wow.
So we went through this track. He had no broken bones, and his recovery didn't involve a lot of medical treatment. He had about $60,000 in bills.
Mm-hmm.
He continued to treat for, I'd say, a year after the collision. And
And at this point, all we know is the head is injured. We don't know that because there's no orthopedic injuries.
no orthopedic
Yet the
injuries.
other guy had 14 different injuries, orthopedic injuries. And yet he came out of it with potential TBI, is what you're at this point doing treatment with that. Is that what he was doing?
Yes, and he had a track record of memorizing all his students' names within like 30 days of school starting.
Uh huh.
And that was his routine. He would memorize. And he couldn't memorize his student's
Interesting.
name. And he would go up to present something to his class, and he would just stand there because he couldn't remember what he was supposed to do. And he'd
Mm-hmm.
been a teacher for years, relatively young. He was under 40,
Wow.
single, and this was devastating to him
Yeah.
because this is what he chose for his career.
Right.
And he continued to work about a month after the collision. He wanted to take more time off, but the principal loved him. Everybody loved him.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can imagine, a surfer guy with
Mm-hmm.
blondish hair, always had a little heavy scruff on him, and just he looked like Jesus a little bit, if you could imagine
Right.
that. Yeah,
Yes.
and everyone loved him. The principal
Yeah.
stopped by, students stopped by when he was in the hospital.
And what level did he teach? What grade or
I want to
level?
say junior high school.
Oh, an
Yeah,
impressionable age. So, yes, really good to have in your life is a good teacher, role model, and somebody that can just be, like them, if you will, let them in. Wow. So he saw this difference in himself after that incident. So tell me more.
right. So
So the principal
start
loves
with
him.
the golden client. You have to have
Yes,
a
you have
golden
to have a
client.
golden client. It
But if you
it
don't, you
makes it
can.
easier.
Yeah, exactly. Makes it easier. And
Yes.
so the other side denied that he had TBI.
Mm-hmm.
And we were working with um, Dr. Choi from California.
Mm-hmm.
She was our um, life care planner.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a series of local doctors that did the treatment.
Like the clinical
Right.
side of it. Any neuropsych treatment or anything like that? Or was it just more of like handling his day to day? Like what kind of, do you recall what kind of treatments he was getting as far as clinical correlation goes?
At some point, we had a neuropsych eval.
Mm-hmm.
My friend Nick Rowley, he helped out,
Nick.
and I was
Yes.
working with John Kawhi, and um, we got him some tests, and we had worked this thing up with a couple of California lawyers. I mean, doctors. Yeah,
Right.
and it was it wasn't concrete. His Glasgow Coma scale was 15.
Right.
Yeah,
And that doesn't always mean anything.
right.
And what I've learned in mild traumatic brain injury, it doesn't mean really anything at that time when they're taking that score because, your brain does so much in the next few days from taking that so that it's not the best indicator for telling if somebody is or not. But imaging wise, did you have anything concrete there to show where the injury was in the brain?
We did not. Yep,
Wow.
nothing on the
See,
imaging, and yeah,
that's where it makes it a little more difficult to help support that diagnosis, right? So, kind of the reason why I got into what I'm doing. And when I saw the pain that these attorneys would have as a visual media consultant, conveying the damages of these cases, it's one thing when you have somebody that's severely brain injured, that's an easy visual to show. And it's an
right,
easy thing to, show to a jury to say, yeah, this guy's pretty messed up. Here's the visual. And when they didn't have that visual, I would see the pain, and I wanted these people to get help too, because I realized in the experience that I've been in this world that somebody can be brain injured without having that visual to show it. So that's amazing that you were able to take it from a layman's witness point of view and actually help this person without that visual. And that's what's more impressive than anything, in my opinion, is you really went at it in a way that's human. That's you brought it to the human perspective of what was he like before this incident and what is he like now? And that's what you were doing, it sounds like.
yeah. It was great and easy because he was such an amazing young man, and the insurance company did try to pull a fast one.
Mhm.
They sent us a check for $100,000 shortly after we filed suit, and
Mhm.
but on the release they had added not just the driver, but his company. And we're like,
Oh.
oh, he was on the clock,
Oh.
and even though
Yeah.
he's driving his personal car, he was going to make deliveries for this alcohol distribution company,
Oh,
a very
wow.
large company, and so the 100,000 that they had offered was his personal policy, and there was
Mhm.
another 5 million
Wow.
behind that, and so we sent
So
him
they're
the
trying to
check.
just let you get by on that.
Yeah, we sent the check back saying no, thank you,
Mhm.
and I just couldn't believe the level of audacity and arrogance to
Yeah.
think that they could just send this check and
Yeah.
we wouldn't look at, who's being
Mhm.
released. And but anyways,
Of course they're going to do that. Yes.
yeah, and
Cuz yeah, they don't have that human side. They don't have that human touch, if you will. Uh So like Nick teaches, the human component of this whole thing. And you hit that because you have this man who is well loved by the community, and now he's not that same person. It's almost like a disappointment to everybody that knows him, because there's that expectation now that he's not meeting. And I'm sure with himself, he felt frustrated and very irritating to know what he used to be like. And now he doesn't have, that same ability. I'm sure that had to have been frustrating. And then to know that imaging's not showing that he's injured. So to show that, we really have to pull that human out, the perspective out. And so that's amazing. And so tell me more about how you mentioned he saw an angel come to him.
Right, and
And
that turned out to be pivotal because
yes,
when you first hear that, you think, is he a little quacky?
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh huh.
Um, but it ended up being the pivotal fact in the medical records because he had reported that to his doctors to determine that he did have immediate symptoms of brain injury, seeing this angel, and that was the diagnosis. Because he went back to work about a month later,
Mm hmm.
and he was an avid basketball player, loved to be in the ocean, bodyboarding, and worked out during his lunchtime at school. Either he would swim or lift weights.
Mm hmm.
So he was extremely active.
That's awesome. So, yes. And did he continue with that type of activity or?
He couldn't run because the running would cause him to get dizzy. And
Interesting.
yeah, the basketball, the impact of, just running and the physicality of the game.
Yeah.
And he went back to lifting weights
Mm hmm.
and pretty much did everything else, but he couldn't run anymore. That's one thing that would make him dizzy.
Mm
And then he had the symptoms in his classroom.
hmm.
And we had his mom and his brother. We had them interviewed, and he's just a really good person all around. And it's so you have this one life before the collision, and then you have this life afterwards,
Mm hmm.
and that helped
Yeah.
show the impact on his life to the insurance company. We had set for trial
Mm hmm.
um, with Mark Choate. He's a friend of mine that he came on pretty late in the case, and we were going to go to trial. And just like a week before trial, everything got continued by the judge for court congestion.
Hmm.
Another case had precedence, and so we're in line before us. And yeah, so we had it continued, and then that gave us an opportunity to try to resolve it
In
before
that
trial.
time. Wow.
Yeah.
And that's when they did. They said, all right. So, are you able to tell us what the settlement was?
Yes, I specifically made sure that there was no confidentiality clause
Oh,
in it,
good.
and the amount was 1,050,000.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
and there was $60,000 in medical bills.
Wow. That's insane. I mean, you went from 100,000 offer to 1 million offer. I mean, that's insane. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Congratulations. That's incredible for him. I know it doesn't bring back the old him, but I know that will help him, in his futures, as well as being an example and a role model to anybody that does suffer from something like that, that he can be that to them. I mean, we talked a little last night, very spiritually connected in that regard, that I see everything is, happens for you, not to you. And, you got to look at what is meant for this in situation. I would imagine somebody like him, he probably, had some of that going where, let's be that person and let's turn this into a positive instead of it being a victim. And so that's wonderful that you were able to get him that. And without having to go to trial, doing this off of no imaging and really just telling the story of your client. in a way that is somebody can understand from the other side and understand that this person is different. So that's incredible.
So, thank
Congratulations.
you. So at one point, we went to his school, and we took some videos, had him show us his classroom, and we went around the room, and he had all this, the work of his students on the walls, and and then I would have him model like what exactly would happen in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
He would, so we videotaped him walking up from his desk in the front of the class and walking up to talk to the students, and he would feel so embarrassed because he would look at a student, he knew their name, but it just wouldn't come to
Yeah.
him, and he's just standing there looking at the student for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And before the injury, he would just rattle off the names for whoever he wanted to call. It didn't happen all the time, but it happened enough where it was embarrassing for him, and he didn't want to go up anymore in front of his class. And we were able to show this all through just video. And when you see how much pride he has in his students displaying their work on the wall, and you could really just see his heart and
Yeah.
be where his workplace,
Mm-hmm.
and show the jury or the insurance adjuster in this case what his life was like day to day, and I like doing that.
That's truly valuable in doing that. Coming from a visual media perspective, yes, if you're not doing that kind of thing, it's almost really a disservice to your client to not get that involved, to really understand what his day to day is like, and so that you can tell that story. So good for you. I'm obviously very happy for you that you got him that great settlement, and so I'm sure he's in his life now. And is he still teaching and going forward?
He went on a sabbatical,
Okay.
and I think this incident had him re-examine his life, but he's going forward with getting his master's, and he
Mm-hmm.
was in the process of doing applications for his master's, which got all held up because of this incident. And
Wow.
yeah, he's doing good given
Mm-hmm.
his condition, and we just spent a lot of time together. I flew out to Kauai, met his mom. His father was a pastor, and so I think that's where he gets his spirituality. And he has
Mm-hmm.
an older sister and a younger brother. I got to meet them all. Um, yeah, just a great family. We had pictures of them on a sailboat in Kauai, their
Mm.
whole family.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. That's such a great story to tell, and it gives hope to those out there that have these types of cases where they don't have really that visual to show it. But if you get to know your client and you really see that they are a changed person from that incident, there is a way to tell that story and still do a great service for your client. So way to go, and way to give that hope out there, because that's what we speak about mostly is, how do we get through these TBI cases that have those challenges, that aren't so black and white, if you will. So that invisible injury is definitely one hard injury to show. But when you can do it through that perspective of other humans and that lay witness from family, from friends, from peers at work, that's incredible to be able to do that and get that policy. So, or get that whole umbrella, if you will, like you did.
And yeah, it's just like you mentioned earlier, trial by human.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Nick is such an inspiration, and he's so helpful. Like, he is just so generous with his time
Mm-hmm.
and his money, and he's just a unique
Very
individual.
unique. He
And
is definitely.
I love the guy, and
Yes.
yeah, he's.
Yes.
I don't know if I would have ever, handled that case because it was my first TBI case,
Mm,
and I don't know if I would have handled that case had I not been inspired by, you know,
makes sense.
the programs that Nick puts out. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I got a quick little story about Nick. That this is my Nick story. So I
Yes,
was at
tell
a
us.
conference in Los Angeles and I called Nick up. I said, "Hey, what's going on? I'm in town." He's like, "Oh, I'm doing a trial in Long Beach."
Hmm.
So I go down to Long Beach and watch him and Courtney, and it's just, I think it involved some sort of bus pedestrian incident. And then he invited me over the weekend to go hang out at their hotel in Laguna. And I was like, oh, we got to go out. And I was investigating a single car Ford Explorer rollover case. Somebody's driving back, not just somebody, but my high school classmate's husband was killed in a single
Oh
vehicle
gosh.
rollover crash coming back from Vegas.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, so
To California?
and we had done or drove out to Barstow and found three of the four tires that flew off the Ford Explorer. So there
Wow.
was a tire
I got
missing.
chills. Wow. That's
And you know those Ford
insane.
Explorers of that year and model, they're notorious for rolling over.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Thanks, Nick, but I gotta go. I got to do some work." And he said, "Oh, where are you going?" I said, "Oh, out to Barstow." And it's like it's a long drive and it's gonna be all day. He goes, "Oh, just take my plane." And I was like, "All right." And at the time, I was thinking, "Wait a minute, I don't know how to fly a plane."
Right. Like, sure, let me just go fly it.
I was like, "That's amazing, you know."
Yeah.
And so the next day, I ran into Courtney, and she's like, "I said, hey, Courtney." And how I know Nick is through Courtney, who
Mm.
is my instructor at the ranch,
Yes.
Travelers College, Jerry Spence, and
Yes.
she
You know,
was.
I'm the only vendor, if you will, to have ever stepped foot on that ranch. Don't tell anyone. No.
That is
But
so
no, I
cool.
got to go with experts in TBI in this field, so I was able to just see what it was like there, and it's amazing space, amazing place there. So yes, go on.
Did you see any wild animals?
You know, I think we saw rams out there, but
Nice.
yes, absolutely. And the river that runs through, oh my gosh, so calming, so amazing out there. That it's beautiful.
No cell phone reception, no
Yes,
TV.
yes.
Just get totally disconnected. We were out there for 3 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and Courtney came, and she was like the bright sunshine that just lit
Mm-hmm.
the place up.
Mm-hmm.
So I met Nick through Courtney, and so I saw Courtney the next morning. I said, "Hey, Courtney, Nick said I could use your plane to go out," and she's like, "Oh, here, let me put you on a three-way text with the pilot."
Mm-hmm.
So I had my assistant and my classmate whose husband had was killed,
Right.
and we flew out there. Saved us like 6 hours. We
Wow.
flew out there in Nick's plane and did what we needed to do, and we're looking for this fourth tire that we couldn't find that on the previous visit out there. And it's like that Twilight Zone where, you know, that whole area is like a huge desert. It looks like Mars.
Yes.
And you remember that one episode where the guy, like, they're astronauts and they think they've landed on Mars,
Mm-hmm.
and he draws like telephone poles at the
Mm-hmm.
very end. I don't know if you're probably too young to
Gosh,
remember that.
I remember Twilight Zone, but this particular episode I do not, but that's okay.
But
Keep
anyways,
going.
yeah. So took us out there. We just couldn't find that tire, and I was about to give up, and I prayed, and
Mm-hmm.
within 30 seconds,
There it is.
and we had spread out and we were walking, and
Wow.
yeah,
Yes,
those little
I
things like
believe in
that.
that. Yep.
Yeah, yeah,
And you might have walked right over it and it wasn't there, but when you get connected like that, it's amazing what the universe can do for you. So
yeah.
you were able to find that fourth tire and you went and litigated that case? You went forward?
No, it ended up we had our experts look at everything, and there were too many blank spots, and that we decided to walk away from that one.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah,
But the gratitude and the hospitality that Nick showed and Courtney showed, amazing.
amazing.
Incredible that you were able to make that connection and then go forward and have this experience and be able to understand that human touch because of them. Yes, I've sat in on their trial by humans and just incredible work that they're doing. And I knew when he was going off to do this. I've known Nick since 2012, actually 13, yeah, right. So it's 13 years almost. And he actually went to the same school, law, University of Laverne. At the same time, I was there as an undergrad. Didn't
Oh,
know him,
right.
never even considered I'd be in this space at all. And who would have thought, it's so cool to see that. And Stephen King, too. They were roommates in college, so in law school. But to make that connection later, and now here we are in this space helping those people. So really great that you made that connection and were able to get that advice and training, really. And it's great that he's doing this throughout the country and
Yes.
really helping a lot of people. So awesome that you highlighted him.
Yeah,
Way
it's
to go,
so,
Nick.
yeah, it's so hard to describe Nick unless you experience him. He's so accessible, so insightful, and always willing
Yeah,
to help.
always, always has been from the minute I met him, for sure. Always offering that help. Doesn't matter what it is. Here's my number, whatever you need. Absolutely.
This is turning out to be the Nick Rowley show. And
I know.
well, let's talk about Dan Ambrose.
Dan Ambrose, you
I
gotta
met
love
him
Dan.
through
Yes.
the Trial Lawyers College. He had come
Mm-hmm.
for a 1 week program, and he was so amazing when I saw his cross examination, telling the story through cross.
Mm-hmm.
I adopted that for all my work, and
Mm-hmm.
and of course Jerry Spence, the master. I know
Yeah.
both Nick and Dan studied under him, and I was
Yep.
able to meet him. And the one thing that Jerry Spence said that I remember is I asked him a question. He said, "John, you gotta love your clients."
Sounds just like him, yes.
And I was like, "Love my clients? What is love my clients?"
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a concept that was foreign to me.
Yeah.
And love is love is God. God is love.
Mm-hmm.
Love is patient. Love is kind.
Mm-hmm.
I think the practice of trial by human, the foundation is love,
Mm-hmm.
and it's made a big difference in my
Mm-hmm.
practice.
Awesome.
And to come and see everyone at Trial Lawyers University, and Dan is helping so many
Mm-hmm.
lawyers.
He's bringing that trial human in. He's bringing these other perspectives of these amazing trial lawyers across the country. And all these people can come in here and, choose what works for them. Who do they, kind of feel that this is same world as them. And to have that many perspectives is awesome because if it's just the one, we all have our different ways of going about things, right? So people connect with us in a different way. So I love that he brings a lot of different diversity here. And boy, has he grown this thing. I've known Dan just as long as I've known Nick because, in fact, my story is I met them at a CALA conference back in 2012. It was Dan's 45th birthday. He was still living in Michigan. He was friends of Nick's. And I had just met Nick's brother that day at this conference, working for this visual media company. And he asked me to go to dinner with the rest of the group. He said his brother's celebrating he's celebrating his friends because he lives with them birthday. And this friend of his was Dan Ambrose. And we get on this party shuttle to go to his party or his dinner. And here's Dan on one of those poles in the middle of the bus, the big party bus. And he's just going around it and everything. And I'm sitting there holding a glass of wine. And the next thing you know, the bus stops or something and he goes flying right into my lap. And that's how I met Dan.
That
So
sounds like Dan.
it
Yeah.
sounds like Dan, right? And luckily, I was wearing black, and so the red did not affect it, and I just brushed it off and went on, and it was fun. And that's how I met Dan. And from then on, a couple years later, I think it was maybe just a year later, I was promoting this visual piece where it's a big screen that you can present from on a TV. And so I would schlep this 55-inch screen TV into his West Hollywood once he came out here in LA. He moved into West Hollywood apartment, and I remember bringing it up to his apartment for his Trojan horse
Right.
group that he just started doing. It was like his second class. And here we are. He's like, "You got to bring this because we can use this TV and we can use this for, showing the jury." He loved it. And so that's how I got to know Dan, is sitting in on these Trojan horse meetings. So, and just seeing that evolve and how he has come here, it's just so cool. And 4 years ago, I remember being 2020, and I'm sitting on the little peninsula of Florida, Captiva. Um, I was out there with, because the kids could go online. So we're like, let's go to Florida.
Right.
So we're there, and I remember getting a call from Dan saying, Brummel, I think I'm doing this other conference. I think I'm gonna put something together where we have a bunch of lawyers coming from all over with their perspectives, and people can just plug into whoever they like. I'm like, Dan, that sounds amazing. I know you're gonna do it. He's like, yep, that's what we're doing. Are you in? Yep, I'm in. So I'll support you. And here we are, 4 years later, and how many? There's like 3,000 people here, I
It's
think.
amazing.
It's
Yeah.
insane.
I think there's like
Or
1,400
fourteen
lawyers.
hundred,
Yeah.
yeah. It
And
just
then,
looks that big.
well, with all the vendors and everyone else, it's
Yes.
just, yeah, amazing. The synergy that Dan is able to bring. I met a great lawyer from Houston, Texas, the first
Oh.
night,
Mm-hmm.
and he was telling me how he never did trials, and it's all because of Dan Ambrose that he got motivated, and his business, the practice of law, has just flourished. And he was telling me, like, just a week before coming to Vegas, he had settled like a $500,000 case and $1 million case, and he never went to trial, and Dan motivated him to go to trial. And I could say the same thing with Nick. Like, I wanted to go to trial, but Nick was always there encouraging me, and just,
Yeah.
yeah,
Guy, you got some great training from amazing people,
yeah.
and here you are doing other great things. So what's next for you? Are you still in that thick of it, learning to be a better trial lawyer every day?
Yes, absolutely. And, I used to have a practice where I did maybe about 40 to 60 cases at any given time. And, I'm trying to hold about 10 to 15 cases.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that there are cases that take the same amount of time
Mm-hmm.
as, the,
The little ones, if you will.
yeah,
Yeah.
that just, so,
But you still give all of you in every one of them. I can tell that.
and I can do even more of that with the
Mm-hmm.
fewer cases, but
Mm-hmm.
they're usually much more serious injuries. And I'm in a place that, I absolutely love. And so
Yes.
I'm
And you have
thankful.
these two daughters that are about the same age as mine. I love it. We just learned that. And so it gives you that work life balance, family balance, I'm sure, to minimize that workload, if you will, because these are important years. I mean, the most impressionable for your daughters to have their role model father there with them and seeing him in action, but yet being there as well.
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
amazing that you're showing these girls what true work ethic and father role and husband role are about. And boy, if we had more time, I would love to get into that. But I know you want to go and learn more, and
Right.
it's about to start in a few minutes. So I appreciate you taking that time to meet with me before. And we just want to spread that love to everybody out there listening, that don't be shy when you don't feel like you have the evidence that's like, in a sense, what we all ideally want in order to go forward and really fight for these clients of ours. But don't be shy. There are tools out there. There are people that will support you. But a lot of people, I think, are afraid to ask. And but all these people here are willing to share. So don't be afraid. Go up to these people that we're speaking of. Ask them questions. John, I know you're always available, I'm sure, to answer any questions people have.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, yes, do you have a website people can go to and see, or any kind of way to
Yes.
contact you?
And actually, let me brag about
Yeah.
first my daughter. She just started college,
Oh,
and I got to attend her first NC2A golf tournament.
Oh, she's a golfer.
and she's going to college in LA, but the tournament was out in Santa Barbara.
Oh my gosh,
And
that's great.
this was just like 2 weeks ago, and gosh, the pride of a father watching
Oh
their
my gosh, that's going to be me
athlete.
next year with my daughter playing softball. We're in the
Amazing.
recruiting phase right now, trying to figure out where we want to go. She wants to go out of state. She wants to leave me. I'm just devastated, but it's all good. I actually can't blame her. You know, I had that same spirit to go be free and explore the world. And I bet she's doing that, right? Your daughter is
She's
just,
loving it.
she's loving it.
She's loving it.
Yes.
So being in Hawaii, we've
Mm-hmm.
always take trips to the mainland, and
Mm-hmm.
excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so she just loved the mainland from all our vacations, and now she's living here in LA County, and
Yeah.
yeah, she's enjoying it. And let me brag one more time.
Yes.
Through all the encouragement, help from Nick and all the other great people, lawyers in my life, I got a $5.4 million verdict against Farmers Insurance. And that
Wow.
was highlighted in the American Association for Justice
Yes.
in their magazine, Trial Magazine, on
Wow.
the
That's
yeah,
impressive.
settlements and verdicts section. And people contact me for that, and they ask for my discovery or my
Sure.
transcripts or
Yes.
whatever. But that verdict, which I haven't really talked about too much, because there's still a lot of stuff going on in the courtroom. But I would say, you know, Nick was the number one inspiration to help me get
Oh,
to that spot. And he
wow.
was one of the first people I called and said, Nick,
Guess
the
what?
jury returned
Got
with
chills again.
5.4. And,
Wow.
the voice, his voice, he's so
Mm-hmm.
happy when
Mm-hmm.
others do well. And he's just,
He's
yeah,
tickled. I know. I feel it. You feel that from him.
yeah,
It's not a show. It's real.
yeah.
It's here. And he really does do a good job of helping those. And he touches everybody that comes in contact with him. That's awesome. Well, what an inspiration you are, Nick, Dan, all of you out there. Thank you for all what you do to help this world be a better place and to help these people in the times that they are struggling the most, to give them that hope and really that freedom that they need to get to go forward in life. So thank you.
Yeah, and I just have to mention
Yeah.
Jacob Norman
Oh, Jacob.
and
How could we
John
forget
Kawai
Jacob?
and
John,
my
yes.
roommate from Travelers College, Sean McMillan, who actually came to the
Yes.
interview with
Love
me.
Sean.
And
He's one of my buds.
yeah, he's a great guy. The rooming with someone for 3 weeks, you get to know them a little bit.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and Jacob was also in our class. He was actually our class rep. He was a leader in our class of 50, July 2011. Yeah.
Wow. And then I met Jacob through Dan when they were doing the Trojan Horse in 2012, 13, and now I am one of his wife's like best friends.
Awesome.
So I love Courtney and Jacob. They're my peeps for sure. And so such a great group of everyone to be here and learn from. So thank you all for sure. Thank you for bringing all these names up and giving them that kudos because they deserve it. And yes, let's keep going. Let's keep helping people and sharing the love.
Yes, and oh yeah, I have to thank Mark Choate, who Nick's
Yes,
friend,
yes,
and he helped me with that TBI. I don't know if I'd mentioned that, the TBI case. He
yes.
came on maybe a few months before trial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he was yeah, shared a lot of
Awesome.
knowledge. Yeah,
Yes. And where is Choate out of?
he's licensed in Alaska and Hawaii,
Okay.
and yeah, he was Nick introduced me to him.
All right.
Yeah,
Yes, amazing. I mean, all of these people coming together to help everyone is just incredible. So, what a great space to be in.
it is.
Yes. Well, thank you for taking the time. I'm
Thank
so
you,
glad we
Amelia.
met. Yep. And I can't wait to do more and talk more. So, we'll see where the future takes us.
Thank you
All right. You're welcome.
for all the good work you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I love it. I love bringing this to the human perspective for sure. Let's get that out there and let's go.
Aloha.
Aloha.